Wow. Okay, so is this working okay? Can you see me? Hello, everybody. Hope you're all doing marvelously well. So this is going to be a fun one, and I apologize if I'm running a little bit on the late side. Yo! I'm running a little bit late because I'm dealing with 10,000 things. And that's kind of one of the things I want to talk about. Because, you know, we're very blessed. Hello, Paul. Hello. Hope you're all doing marvelously well. Because, you know, I'm very blessed because I get to do this for a living. I get to make music and I get to talk to you and interact with you. It's absolutely fantastic. I'm so blessed to have you all. It's absolutely incredible. So give me 1 second because I'm going to broadcast this also, strangely enough, on Facebook because I think this is a big discussion. Hello, Quinn. Hello, everybody. This is a really big discussion, and this is not just for beginners, but I think it's primarily aimed at beginners. And I think that that's important for us. Wow, there's so many of you online. It's absolutely amazing. Please, as ever, like and share. I'm just going to start one here. So give me 1 second. We're going to call it Home Studio Basics. All right, so we're going live on Facebook as well. So how are you all doing? First time to see me live. Well, yeah, this is it. This is it. This is the reality. This is the bad hair. This is my studio. I'm very fortunate, you know. I believe that that's very important for us to live in gratitude. Eddie Kramer's coming very soon. I think it's very, very important for us to live in gratitude because we are blessed to be able to do this for a living. Shaking Stevens, well, thank you. Yeah, thank you. I mean, I'll take Shaking Stevens. I think it's very important that we live in gratitude because all of us here love music, and that's one of the most amazing things is that as the human race we all love music. You know, it's something that's so important to us, and it's so important to us that that many of us take that passion and try to create this as a career. And I think what Produce Like a Pro is for me is a way to give back to our community. And as a professional, as a guy that does this every day, as you see, I go online on Facebook and do little Facebook live videos of me working, and I've done, I don't know, maybe 100 of those over the last year. I like to do that because I'll just start the camera up and play some guitars or track some drums and do some bass, because to me it's all about community. It's all about showing you what it's actually like to make music. I'm not a professional tutor. I'm not a guy that, you know, started a YouTube channel primarily to make money by teaching. That's not what this was all about. For me, this was an opportunity to fill a gap where I felt like, you know, in the middle where there was actually a professional showing what it was like. And I'm not retired and occasionally mixing a song or something like that. This is what I do every day. And it is a blessing. So I thank you ever so much, and I'm continually blown away by people that follow me and, you know, leave wonderful comments and get involved in this discussion. So, talking of discussion, what are we going to do? One of the videos I did a couple of years ago when I started the YouTube channel was like the 5 basic things that you need to get going in a home studio. So let's discuss that. There's a lot of people here from the Academy which are absolutely wonderful here, and they help each other out. You know, so what we want to do, hello in Ireland, hello everywhere, hello everybody all over the world. So what we're going to do is explore that a little bit more. And before I do that. Will you please like and share the video so YouTube can tell everybody that it's up? Apparently they will, if you like and share, they push it more. God bless it. All right. So what were those 5 things? They were talking about the computer, the DAW, the audio interface, the microphone, and last but no means least, of course, there's no order, no preferential order, how you monitor. Now, all of those are big discussions, and I see them in forums, I see people arguing all this different way, and it's quite interesting. Even from yesterday when we posted last night the blog post just asking people to watch this video, even that started some interesting discussions. So what we can do is we can break that down very simply. Now, number 1, the computer. And what's interesting about that is, of course, many of us, and I myself am including in this as a creative, use Apple products. Now, if you've seen, there's a lot of discussion at the moment about Apple. That would be an understatement. On YouTube alone, there's probably 10,000 videos fighting about Apple. Now, why do I use Apple? Well, it sort of was an inevitability because I started in the 90s on computers. So when we started in the 90s on computers, a lot, not all, don't get me wrong, a lot of the software, the DAWs, the initial ones, were pushed towards Apple users. It was seen as a creative choice. Now, this is the reality. You can get all DAWs within reason. There are a couple of exceptions, and we can debate that if we like, but I'm not really going to bother. Most of the DAWs are available on any platform. What my aim is to do with this conversation is to get rid of some myths, and more importantly, break down those barriers to stop people making music. Because a lot of the conversations that are had on YouTube and of course everywhere in all of the different forums stops people from making music. They go, oh, but I read that unless I have this computer or that computer, I can't do it. You know what? The reality is, and anybody that makes music will tell you, whatever you've got, you can make it work. If you've got a PC, you can record music. If you've got a Mac, you can record music. There is no preference on the right computer. Either will do the job. So that's number 1. And also, I had my guys this morning, Matt McQueen, who I assume is on here. Hi, Matt. I asked him just to check on the DAWs as to what their minimum requirements were. And almost every single one said the minimum requirement was 4 gigabytes of RAM. Now, obvious, and a couple of them said 8. So the reality is that 8 gigabytes of RAM, 4 or 8 gigabytes of RAM is almost standard with every computer that you can buy now. And if it's not, and you do happen to have 2 or 4, an upgrade, even on a Mac, as long as it's upgradable, is relatively, and I always use this term, relatively inexpensive. So the entry point, you can get into a PC at a couple of $100. And I'm sure there's lots of people watching this now that do know PCs. So if you know PCs, help each other. I'm sure there's lots of people here that are very good at telling everybody they're wrong. Well, you know what? Let's twist that and help. Because if you're an expert on speakers, you're an expert on computers or whatever, help each other out, Let's help each other out. So, if you know about computers, point. Let's see some information going here. I'd love to see people go, okay, here's a computer that I like to use. It's only a couple of $100. John over on Facebook said, I'm running a 2006 max power channel, running Pro Tools 8 smooth. If it ain't broke, he goes, I got it for $120. There you go. So Give us some other experiences. Get the information down here. Let's help each other out. Once this video posts, I'd love to see, instead of like, oh, you suck, you don't know what you're talking about, blah, blah, blah. Instead of that, let's do this. Let's go, I'm running this computer and it works. Give me instances. Let's help each other out. This is a community of people all working. Instead of being combative, let's be helpful. Let's help each other out. My computer down here, see people saying they're using PCs. My computer down here, I'm going to start it, is, I believe, it's a tower, it's a Mac tower. I'm going to start it and check out. I did upgrade the RAM and stuff, but to the best of my knowledge, it's the last iteration they made. You know, I'll wait till it comes up and I'll tell you. The point is I bought this computer refurbished, and it was actually expensive because it had the upgraded video card, and Matt's telling me the fan's blowing up the phone. I don't know how I can do anything about that, Matt, but thank you ever so much for letting me know there's a problem. I'm going to move it over here. Nobody else has commented on it, but if it's bothering Matt, all good now. All right, I moved it onto the iLouds. So I'm sorry if it looks like I'm looking at different speakers, at different monitors all the time. So I have to apologize if you're watching me and it looks like I'm not actually looking at you. Okay, way better. Okay, cool. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so let me look at my computer, which is like, I'm running HD, I've got 192s, Apogees, a Lavry, I've got lots of expensive gear, tons of cards, maxed out. I'm running it through a hybrid SSL. So what do I have? What do I have, which is pretty typical of a lot of people that are making records, that are professionals, people that have big budgets and lots of gear. So what I'm using is a 2.33 gigahertz 6-core Intel Xeon with 16 gigabytes of RAM. That's what I'm using. And I'm running a hybrid system through an SSL and a lot of outboard, a lot of, sorry, the picture's really bad now, isn't it? Because we moved it. A lot of outboard stuff, a really fancy, you know, a really fancy kind of setup. So it's not typical. It's not typical of other people, and you know, and yet it works really well. And this computer was like, I believe, about $800 with an upgraded video card. So therein sort of is the reality. And what do you use? Can you help each other out? Tell us what you got. I love this stuff. Unfortunately, one of the issues with YouTube is that they don't keep the streaming comments alive afterwards. So if you're watching this after the video's finished, please do me a favor and leave your system on there. What we need to do is we need to interact with each other and realize that you don't necessarily have the latest and greatest to make music. I'm telling you that my computer was about $800 or $900 with a really expensive video card with 16 gigabytes of RAM, and it was refurbished. Now I know the one I had before was also refurbished, and it was about $600. The point is like, please, if you have the budget, go out and buy the latest and greatest, the fastest, most amazing, if you've got the budget. But please don't let that hold you back. Here I've got people saying they've got a quad-core i7 Mac Mini for $799. Says it's got an old laptop with 3 gigabytes of RAM and a 4-channel interface, works with Cubase. You know, the reality is this is the real world. This isn't the forum world where people are like going, no, that sucks. You can't make music unless you have a blah, blah, blah. I mean, you know, we'll let that world exist. This is the real world. This is the community world of everybody helping each other out. You know, i7 32 gig SSD, huge quiet fans. Woo! Somebody's very fancy. I'd like your computer. It's much better than mine. That's cool though. I mean, like I said, if you've got the budget, get it, you know. But look at this, i3 Intel 2nd generation, 4 gigabytes of RAM, Windows 10, If I turn the phone sideways, Chronex, it will not move, and you'll see me at an angle. And thanks for being the only one to point it out. You can always find something wrong with what I do, Chronex. One day you'll compliment me. All right, so here we go. If you don't need a mobility desk card, Pentium 4G, blah blah brand for really cheap. The point is like there's tons and tons of different stuff that people are using. All right, so there it is. We found out that you can get things going for inexpensive stuff. Thank you, everybody that's being really super positive and helpful here. This is what it's all about. It's about community and helping each other. Let's help each other. Okay, so look, here's the reality. Like I said, once the video stops, if people are watching this, please let us know what you're using so we get a really good idea of the reality. Obviously, it would be nice to know what your DAW you're using and what version you're using with your computer. That would be absolutely amazing. I'd really, really appreciate it because that would really help other people here. i7 Mac, lots of stuff, PCs, Pentiums, Intels, it's great. So it's fantastic. People running Windows 10. This is fantastic. All right. So what have we proved? We proved that from $200 and somebody with a $120 computer right up to a several $1,000 computer are making music. So that's the first thing. That's the first barrier we can break down. We don't have to have the latest and greatest. My computer is from 2011. So I've got a 2011. It's not to say that maybe one day I won't break, spend some money and really upgrade, whoever has the most equipment wins, says somebody. That's funny. But that's the reality. We're here to help each other, and we've found out that you can make music on everything. There's always going to be somebody that tells you they're doing it wrong. That's the reality, but that's not what we're here to do. We're here to help each other. All right, number 2, DAW. Okay, so what DAW do you use? I use primarily Pro Tools. Why do I use Pro Tools? Well, it's as simple as this. It was the first, at least in my experience, it was the first one that did really good audio editing. And I'm probably a little older than a lot of people, that are starting off doing music. The reality is that if you're up and coming now, you could be 13, 14, 15, starting making music, and Pro Tools is just one of the ones that's available. Ableton comes up all the time. It's a reality. It's like Cubase comes up, Reaper comes up, Logic comes up. There's so many people here talking about what they've got. Why do I use Pro Tools primarily? Well, once again, I'm a guitar player. I'm a keyboard player, but I wasn't a keyboard player first, so I wasn't sitting in there doing MIDI and all of this kind of stuff. So the reality is that I wanted to be able to edit audio. And Pro Tools comes out with this very, very straightforward looking audio editor. And it really, really changed things. Chronix uses Studio One. There's lots of great stuff. So that was why I did it. Now, you've got to bear in mind the timeline. I started making professional music, recording it in like 94, 95. So a long, long time ago. That's 23 years ago I started on a DAW. I was one of the earliest guys on Pro Tools. Not the earliest, but one of the earliest. So, however, on my laptop, which is over here doing the Facebook Live, on my laptop, I have Logic because it comes with my MacBook Air, or it was relatively inexpensive. And what do I like? I do like using Logic. I like it because the virtual sounds that come with it are really good sounding. And they come for free with it. Yeah. No, I understand, Chronix. But also encourage people. It's important to encourage people because, This is really important. Let's make this a thing. Encouragement is also good because the beginners read some of these comments and it stops them. And I know this because I'm blessed with you guys to have a really huge email list and get hundreds of emails a day. And I get hundreds of emails from beginners and people learning which say, I was going to do this or I was going to do that, but I read this comment or this forum post that put me off and I don't know because this guy told me I don't know what I'm doing and blah, blah, blah. So realize that we have a responsibility, if you have knowledge, to encourage, not just to troll. You've got to encourage people. I can't turn the camera. If I do that, you'll see me on the edge. Once it's started, unfortunately, we're done that. So if you don't like it, you can tune out. That's quite all right. Anyway, so look, we've got to encourage each other. This is a big thing. We can't just be like, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, because the reality is that a lot of it is interpretation. It is interpretation. This is really, really important. And Chronix, if you want to hijack this conversation talking about phones, that's not going to help. So I'm going to let it go. So anyway, we're talking about DAWs. Whatever you use and whatever you're familiar is the DAW that you should use. It's really important. If you're super fast on Cubase, you really know Logic, you know Pro Tools, you know Reaper, you know Ableton. I can tell you a professional that does really, really, really well in every single one of those DAWs. Now, different people lean towards different things. In Pro Tools, guitar players love it. We love being able to edit audio. I love that stuff. But oh no, I do say FL Studio. In fact, you're completely wrong on that one. Go and look at my Mick Gordon interview. You see, I have like 400 plus videos. I'm very blessed to have done a lot of stuff out there. So you may have seen 10 of them. But yeah, FL Studio, Mick Gordon is one of the biggest video game guys in the world. And he uses FL Studio. So, do your homeworks. FL Studio gets featured a lot. We talk about it a lot. Cubase. We've got a very good friend of ours at the moment who's going to be doing some Cubase videos for us. Have you noticed I'm not being paid by anybody to talk about their products. So we do a really good job. We do our best, to try and show all of them. We have Rob Mays doing some Logic stuff. We've had some Studio One from David Mood, who's fantastic. There's tons and tons of different DAWs out there. FL Studio we talked about with Mick Gordon. We're also going to do some stuff with some wonderful other people with FL Studio. The point is, Reaper, obviously, with Glenn. Just recently we put up a video using Reaper with Glenn. It's all about, I can tell you what I like because what I use, but it doesn't mean it's the best. It does mean it's good for me as a guitar player. I love Pro Tools for editing. I love the audio editing capabilities. I think it's really amazing. However, somebody's saying cakewalk. Yeah, horses for courses, Keith. That's the point. If you've got a DAW you know well, especially if it's got great virtual instruments, that's what you should use. Exactly. Whatever gets the job done, people are saying here. Exactly. But Mick Gordon, a professional, probably the biggest video game guy in the world as a composer, uses FL Studio. I've seen people fight and say that FL Studio sucks. Well, you know what? Mick Gordon uses it. Ableton Live. We've featured many people on the channel that write and produce dance music and pop music, and what do they use? Ableton Live. We've met many traditional rock guys that produce, engineer, and mix rock music. What do they use? Yes, it is HD. They use Pro Tools. But the point is they, like me, came up on it. I love Pro Tools, and I'm not one of those guys that's going to be anti-products that work. I use Waves plugins a lot. I like them. There's lots of different stuff. So the reality is that whatever you use, just use it. Take your DAW, embrace it, learn it well. If you're at a point in your career where you're learning and you want to change, then you need to look at why. Look at the people you know and you admire and find out why they use those DAWs. If you're a rock guy and you're doing a lot of audio editing, people love Pro Tools. They just do. If you do dance music, and especially if you want to manipulate sound and samples, then Ableton seems to be killing it at the moment. If you grew up using Cubase, there's nothing wrong with Cubase. I know great guys that work in Cubase. Logic has so many great virtual sounds. Everything has a wonderful thing. Mixbus seems to be doing really well with people that are traditional console users, and they seem to love using Mixbus. So that's another thing that would be really, really important to think about. So do a little bit of homework, do a bit of research, but basically for anybody that's watching this after, because unfortunately we have hundreds and hundreds of comments going up on YouTube here, and we also have them going up on Facebook. The advantage of Facebook is it leaves them up. Unfortunately, YouTube, I'm not sure why, but it doesn't. Did I say magical? This feels like this is like this. Don't imply things that people are saying to make a point and to start a fight. The reason why Pro Tools works well for audio editing and why we like Pro Tools for audio editing is because primarily they were first, and the interface works really well. People love the way you can edit waveform editing. I love Logic, but I don't like editing waveform editing in it. And most of my friends that work in both platforms don't necessarily. They tend to favor different DAWs for different stuff. And yes, it became an industry standard because it was one of the first. It was one of the first that did it. But people remember with Pro Tools didn't like MIDI editing in it for a while. And now I kind of like the MIDI editing. But it took them a while to get it to that point. People say they don't like editing in Logic, but that's a preference. I think what we're all doing here, and this is the big point, we're all proving the same thing, and that is whatever DAW you can do really well in it. I don't think there's necessarily a bad DAW. Yes, it's a good point. Exactly, it is subjective, and that is the point. My opinion is my subjective opinion. And that's what's really Pro Tools does do a free one. I'm not here to sell Pro Tools. I'm here to talk about DAWs in general and try to be supportive and positive and make you all really, really help each other here. So once again, two things. Would you like and share, please? Please like and share so people know that we're doing this video. I would really, really appreciate it. So everybody on YouTube, please like it. It would be absolutely amazing. Yes, it's about workflow. Pro Tools isn't expensive. They do a free version and a yearly. So if you want to try the free one, you can. Again, I'm not trying to sell Pro Tools. I'm just trying to knock down some of those negative things that stop people. Let's help each other. Once this video goes live, if you come back to it, please post what computer you use, please post what DAW you use, and let's show everybody that it's okay and you can make music with whatever you've got, because this is the message. It's about supporting each other, growing our community, and helping each other, not about telling each other we're wrong. So I love that THR head. Okay, number 3, the audio interface. What do you use? I have had experience with expensive and inexpensive. Expensive, Apogee, love them. I've got an Apogee over here. It's an old one. I love it. I've got Avid ones. I love them. Use them every day. They're really, really good. I also have Lavry. And I will be honest, I really, really love the sound of this Lavry. It's what I mix through. Now, it's not cheap. It's not cheap at all. But it's what I print my mixes through, and I've had a wonderful experience printing mixes through it. Why do I use it? I use it because a friend of mine, Mark Endert, who's arguably one of the greatest mixers in the world. I'd say Mark Endert and Spike Stent, always blow me away. Spike is one of the most diverse mixers, if not the most diverse mixer that ever lived. He's completely genreless, and you don't. I'm justifying my professional opinion. No, I'm telling you that my professional opinion is not important. I keep telling you to share and look at each other's information and realize it. That's very interesting how people can bring their own opinions in that aren't really based in any kind of fact. I think that luckily hundreds of you are watching because you realize that this is about sharing and like telling me and me telling you that my opinion is not important. Everybody's opinion is important because we need to stand back and look at this and go, everybody uses a different computer, everybody uses a different DAW, and everybody uses a different audio interface. And what that shows us is something that's really, really super important, that you can make music on everything. So my opinion is your opinion is what matters. That's it. And if you're not getting that, then you're not listening to me because I just said it. So what I have is I have a bit of everything, and I love my Lavries, but they're expensive. And I love the way they print. And why did I get them? Because people ask me. Exactly. Stay positive. And the reason why I like them is because I admire people that use it. Now, people have been going RME, they've been going Apogee Duet, they've been going UAD and Antelope. All of these are wonderful things. But you can start off, and let's talk about it, with the most basic stuff. And who makes the most basic stuff? Well, everybody has a relatively inexpensive. One of the ones that I love, of course, is Audient. They've been really, really good to us. They've been really, really positive and supportive, and I love that. So I can talk about the little IDs, the basic ones. They're very inexpensive. They have great sounding mic pre's. One of the things that I have been contemplating talking about a lot about recently is what point do you have to upgrade? That's a difficult one because it comes down to like, what are you recording? Not only what is your budget, but what are you recording? If you're recording full bands, then you're going to need something a lot more impressive than a little 2-input ID4 or a Focusrite 2i2. Those two pieces of equipment I have made recordings on, and you've seen me do it. You've seen me do it in videos. You've listened to, if you've downloaded the mix. As Randy's saying, what is your budget? These are important things. These are super, super important things. What is your budget? But what are you recording? If you're only recording Burl Audio, make amazing stuff, but definitely not on the lower budget. If you're recording a full band, you're going to need probably minimum 8 inputs, which is quite, isn't $200. But let's be honest, 90% of the time here with me recording albums, 90% of the time I'm recording 1 or 2 inputs. I've got a mono mic on the mono mic on the piano, 57 only on my guitars, and a DI and an amp on my bass, and I can get away with just a DI now that I have that. Now that I have the Motown DI, I can get away with just one on that. The only time I'll go and use more mics, of course, is when I'm on my drums. Yeah, somebody says, use gold-plated USB cables. I mean, that's the reality. That's where this stuff goes. When you see people doing videos talking about power cables that cost $10,000. I mean, that's the sort of insanity where we go. That's the sort of silliness that we've got to knock down. That kind of thinking. Because you know what? I do love my Lavry, and it is expensive. But am I telling you that I couldn't make records on an ID4 or a 2i2? Heck, of course I can make records on an ID4 and a 2i2. But I'm blessed to have a lot of experience, It's really, really important to let people know. What DI do I recommend? The same answer. What is your budget? Because you can get something from a whirlwind up. However, most of the interfaces these days have DI inputs. So don't stop yourself from making music going, well, I haven't got an expensive DI. Well, you know what? I've done DI inputs on Focusrite's and Audience, and I've got great results. And they're super cheap. Yes, somebody's saying Countryman. I do love the radials. The radials are really, really fantastic. But what's important to remember is, like, we're building this from the ground up. You've got an inexpensive computer, whatever you've got. You've got the DAW that you know. And then you're building from there. So let's be important and help each other. Behringer. I have no problem. If you've got a Behringer IO and it gets you going, then you're making music. I have no problem with thinking that if you're doing primarily a vocal, you're really just going to need a half decent microphone. Okay, next up. All right, so what have we established there? We've established that audio interfaces, no matter what you've got, are going to work. Somebody's saying they don't have the headroom with the Behringer. Well, that would be interesting. I don't know. I've never shot them out. But yes, PreSonus. These are all great, great things. The reality is like, whatever your audio interface, you really just need to be thinking about upgrading. Like, what are you recording? Are you recording only 1 or 2 inputs? Then great. I still have an M-Box lying around that we use occasionally. It's crazy. Depending on what we're doing, I have a lot of stuff going on. You know, sometimes I'll be recording a full band here, then I have to run away and do an overdub somewhere else. I'm very busy, so what do I have? Paul's saying the most important thing is the song. It is all about the song. People are saying buy used. Yes, you can buy used. I mean, these are very, very important things. Okay, so we've established computer. Whatever you've got, start making it. Minimum requirement for most DAWs is 4 gigabytes. A couple of them is 8 gigabytes. RAM is relatively easy and inexpensive to upgrade. People have said they have computers that cost them $120 or from $120 that are making music. So don't stop yourself from making music thinking that you have to have a $2,000 or $3,000 computer. We've already proved that. People are giving you suggestions of what they got. Please, when you're watching this video later, please post what you use. DAW. What DAW do you know? Use your DAW. There are people making huge amounts of money from FL Studio, Reaper, Mix Plus, Logic, you name it, Pro Tools, everything, Cubase, whatever you've got, you can make a living on your DAW. So don't be told that one is better than the other. It's better than the other in a certain situation. It doesn't mean if you're a dance music guy, you're probably going to gravitate towards things like Ableton or Studio One or Logic or whatever it is. But as you know, they have great technology for manipulating samples, so people love Ableton. Okay, next up, audio interface. What are you doing? Are you only recording dance music and virtual instruments and only need to do one vocal at a time? If you do, somebody said to check out PCI audio interfaces. Please post that afterwards. If you can, when this video finishes. Unfortunately, YouTube does not keep these posts, which is unfortunately kind of sucks. Okay, so audio interface. What are you recorded? You know, thank you. Yes, whatever gets the job done, says Chronix. That's the reality. So if you're recording a full band, you're going to need at least 8 inputs, probably more. But at least 8 inputs, because it's going to, how many mics are going to use on drums? You know, you can do 3 if you want to do a Glyn Johns approach. So then it gives you 5 left to do the rest of the band. It's possible. So your minimum entry is going to be an 8 input if you're recording live bands. But in reality, you probably want to get up to 16 or 24, unless you are specifically wanting to go for that 3 mic sound on the drums. You can do it. But if you're doing dance music and you're doing pop music, I have friends that have records that are in the top 10 at the moment that are recorded on a laptop. I do. And what do? They just recorded most of them have like UAD Apollos, and they recorded a live vocal through their Apollo, you know, just a little baby one, and yet they built the rest of the track in their laptop. There are songs in the charts at the moment. So if you are, this is all about genres now. If you're doing pop music and you want that kind of production, and that's what you're going to do, you can do it with the UAD Apollo. It's not my opinion. It's just the reality of these pop producers. That's what they're doing. So it's all about genres. It's about what do you want to do. If you're going to do rock and roll, you're going to need Hawaiian polka metal. Yeah, Hawaiian polka metal probably needs at least 8 inputs if you're going to record live drums. You get my point. Just define and identify what you want to do and then take it from there. Okay, next one. Number 4. Da-da-da. Number 4. Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da. I don't know why I'm doing the final countdown. It's probably because there's one after that. All right, number 4. Microphones. This is a big topic. So, first of all, I would highly suggest, and Matt McQueen, can you post this link? I would highly suggest the Matt McGlynn YouTube video that we did. Yes, please subscribe. Please, somebody's saying subscribe. Yes, please subscribe. Please like the video and please share. I'm going to quickly look here. But there's a Matt McGlynn video I did. Now, Matt, I highly recommend this, and hopefully Matt McQueen is posting it any second. I highly recommend this because this video, or Matt Diamante, could you post it in Facebook and on YouTube? I highly recommend it because Matt McGlynn runs recordinghacks.com. There are a certain amount of these kind of guys, and Matt is one of them. Matt McGlynn is a great guy, and he talks about how the you can either buy inexpensive. He identifies inexpensive microphones, and he takes you from like the $200 or even less $100 microphones and up. The reality is there's so many amazing microphones that are inexpensive that you can use. So what do I feel about mics and starting out and best tune setup? I think one of two things. I think that you can get a mic for like $200 or less, and that will do stuff. And I love as you know, this is personal preference, I love the Lewitt mics. Why do I like the Lewitt mics? I'm going to talk about it quickly because Austrian design, made by former AKG employee, making Austrian design microphones. He does make them in China, but then he sits there, or the company sits there, and they test every single one, and they reject huge quantities. So the only ones that make it to the market are very high quality. Matt Chronix is saying DIY. If you've got the time and you've got electronic skills, you can do that. If you don't, yes, I've used a DTP 240 on pro sounding vocals all the time. But I'm not here just to not to sell Lewitt microphones. They don't pay me. I'm just telling you that's what I use. It's inexpensive. As a professional, a lot of my professional friends use Lewitts. They're inexpensive. Yeah, I've used the 240 on a vocal a lot. Okay, so there are many others though. People, it depends on your budget, Paul. Whatever you can afford. Yes, you keep asking, and I keep saying the 240 is great for vocals. All right, so lots of you have pointed towards this. The Delphos is a great mic. A lot of people have pointed towards the Rode NT1. They just sent us one. We're going to do a review and a giveaway on the NT1. The NT1, let's be honest, it's the company that started this off. The Rode came out and they made a microphone which was relatively inexpensive that opened up the home studio market. So it's very important. SE Electronics also made great mics. So it's important for us to acknowledge this because this is really a big deal. This really opened up. Yeah, MXL microphones, go on to recordinghacks.com and see them talk about MXLs and the mods you can do for those that are inclined. Not everybody's inclined and has the time. Yeah, the newer microphones are very inexpensive, and if that's what you're going to start on, it's a $30 or $40 mic, do it. If you're going to buy one of those unexclusive like Focusrite studio packages, do it. If that's what's going to get you started. Somebody says they can't get a good sound from the NT1. I'm not quite sure. Yes, you probably need some kind of interface with better mic pre's. It's probably a mixer. There's so many, people here that talk about it. Let us know. What do you use, people are, and how they make great sounding stuff. it's really, really important to know that, yes, there are subtle differences between this $10,000 mic and that $15,000 mic and this $6,000 mic. Yeah, there is. But the reality is that you can make great sounding music. We'll get to monitors in a minute with the headphones. That you can make great sounding music with almost any equipment out there. And if you've got an understanding, you can take a crappy sounding something, instrument or microphone, and use it and abuse it in a different way. So if you've got a really cheap condenser microphone, you know, maybe it does distort, but maybe that's something that you can use in a creative way. But I think for most people, that $200-ish hovering around microphone is pretty darn hard to beat. There's a lot of good stuff in that price range. Check out the Matt McGlynn video that we did. I'm going to text... all right. I'm not sure why Matt McQueen hasn't posted it yet. But here's the reality. Okay, cool. He said he posted it. So if you check that out, it went by very fast. Okay, yeah, maybe post it again. After we finish this video, we'll get to all that in a minute. That's all, folks. What we're doing here is we're talking about the 5 things to get you going. So microphones, inexpensive condenser can do the job. At about $200, there's a lot of choice. Check out the Recording Hacks video I did with Matt McGlynn. You'll get a bit more insight into it, but there's a lot of good choice in that price range. However, what is the number one thing you're going to use? Probably a dynamic. And as people are saying, and I've been letting it go by and bringing up, a 57 is a great entry point. It's about $100 depending. Hello, Meg. Hello, Todd. Hello, everybody. A 57 is a great entry point in a way to start going. If you've got about $100, you can buy one used. You can buy one. Yeah, we'll talk about room treatment at the very end. But the reality is that it can do the job, and people have recorded great vocals with an SM57. Okay, I'll tell you a quick story. So I was interviewing Ulrich Wilde, and he recorded Paul Rodgers for a project. And Paul Rodgers comes in, and they sing on a U67, and they're singing away, and they're singing away, and Paul's like, well, this isn't my usual vocal mic. And so basically Ulrich goes, well, what do you usually use? And Paul goes, I don't remember, but if you email or call my engineer, he'll tell you what the mic is that I normally use. So he emails the engineer, gets a response back, SM57. So look, here's the reality, and this is what's important about this. So Paul Rodgers from Free, Bad Company, and obviously was in The Firm with Tony Franklin, our good friend, you know, is one of the greatest rock singers of all time. Free in particular are one of my favorite bands. However, there's one very important thing to know about this. It doesn't mean the SM57 is the best vocal mic in the world, but it does mean for Paul Rodgers it's part of his sound, and it's something that he loves and uses. So the takeaway isn't, oh, I only need an SM57, but the takeaway is you can only have an SM57. And if this is what gets you going, then get you going. Let's do it. Let us get going with an SM57. If that's what it is, if that's what it takes. And what's great about an SM57 is it can get you going. It can. My favorite acoustic guitar sound, and the one that Mark Ender commented me on, was with a Digi 001 on a Pro Tools LE system using an SM57 in the year 2001. In 2001, I was at my house with my 9600 Mac. Anybody here remember the 9600? 9600 with a FireWire card put into one of the slots. A FireWire card that I got for like $30 plugged into my used Mac 9600 with a FireWire cable going to my Pro Tools LE system, running Pro Tools LE, which was only 24 tracks at that point. And I recorded a song for Epic that was on a soundtrack for, what was the name of the movie? I can't remember. I think it was like Aquamarine, I think it was. Anyway, it was a big movie starring some teen stars, and the song was recorded on a Pro Tools LE with a Digi 001. The vocals were done on an SM57, and the acoustic guitars were done with an SM57. And that was a big song that was on a big soundtrack. So the point is, and that's back in 2001. When this kind of stuff was not so commonplace. Now it's very, very commonplace to do inexpensive stuff. And before that, at my house, and I was making records, they were done on ADATs. And I was getting artists signed on ADATs. And as you know, Alanis Morissette's record, most of her album was done on ADATs in studios. Hi, Ralph, how are you? The point is that with the talent and the creativity and honestly the passion and the drive to do this, you can make really, really good sounding records with whatever you've got. And a Digi 001, is anybody that will tell you, talking of interfaces, is nowhere near as good sounding as an Audient, Focusrite, RME, all of those ones. It was definitely a little cloudy sounding. So the point is like, you can do it. You can do it. So there you go. I am the proof of the pudding. I had a used 9600 in 2001, which was already an old, out-of-date computer with a Firewire card, a Digi 001, and an SM57, and I had a song in a soundtrack of a movie on an album that sold, blah, blah. The point is like, it's always been available, no matter what, period. Okay, so we know we can do this, and you know you can do it, so just encourage each other. Help each other out. If you've got an inexpensive computer, and if whatever DAW you've got, whatever audio interface you've got, whatever microphone you've got, and how you've been doing it, let's help each other. Let's encourage each other. Once this video finishes, please leave some more comments, because God bless YouTube, but unfortunately they don't leave the streaming comments up anymore. So after that's done, do me a huge favor, please, 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 leave some positive comments, because we want to help each other out. There's no right way or wrong way. We've proved it. All the professionals I interview all have different ways of doing it, and some have expensive gear and some have inexpensive, and some mix the two together. I personally, yeah, somebody says they're still using Hardware. We're going to get to acoustic treatment in a moment. I keep saying that. Okay, you're probably tuning in a little later. It's okay. Do me a favor. Can you like and share? Everybody on YouTube and Facebook, please like and share, because that's how YouTube knows. And if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe. You can go to Produce Like a Pro and sign up for the email list. There's tons of free multi-tracks. There's tons of free samples that I've used on the Fray and James Blunt and Aerosmith and Ace Frehley and blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. You can get all of that free stuff. There's Q&A sessions coming up now with some of the top engineers, producers in the world that are going to be doing free stuff. We just did some Beatles stuff, which was wonderful. We're doing that every month. We're breaking down Beatles songs inside of the Academy. There's lots of really amazing stuff coming, so please check that out. Sign up for the email list. It's producelikeapro.com. Okay, what's last and no means least? And we'll do an overview as well. But what's last and no means least? And it's going to be all tied in together. Monitoring. Speakers and headphones. Now, number one, and this is really, really important. Number one, when you're starting out, this is for people starting out. Please, I hope that you understand, when you're starting out, if you've got a pair of okay-ish headphones, it's okay to use them. It's okay to start out on headphones. I have friends that mix a lot on headphones. I do. Do most of them use studio monitors? Of course they do. But it's okay to start on headphones. It really is. People are saying MDR, Sony MDR 7506s. Those are an industry standard. I personally don't like working on them. I grew up in England, and for those of you, the Europeans are watching, you know what headphones we use. Ralph is from Germany, so he knows what I'm going to say. I use Bayers. That's what I did growing up. I still have 4 pairs of DT100s. They are the most horrible mid-rangey sounding things ever. And you could probably, they go for a pretty penny because they're so popular. And I recently started using the 990s, which are very expensive, DT100s, DT110s. However, I love Beyers. I grew up on Beyers. I can speak about them. However, I don't exclusively use them, and I'm not trying to sell them. I love them. Grew up on them. But AKG make good headphones. And I think, pound for pound, talking of price point, being English, Audio-Technica takes some really hard to beat. Let's be honest, see somebody saying Audio-Technica. Audio-Technica have the widest range for me. You know, they have a super wide range. They start really inexpensive and they go up to quite expensive. So the point is like, I asked Barry, and Barry, you know, Barry Rudolph, who is a guy who specializes in room treatment, and we'll get to a little bit about that in a minute. Barry spoke very positively about Audio-Technica, and I think he made a very good point. We'll get to that in a minute, preamps. We're going to do more expensive stuff afterwards, but at the moment we're keeping this to the 5 major points. So basically, and I'll keep reiterating those 5 points over and over again because it's very important that we keep focusing on it. But Barry made a very good point. I really strongly support him. Audio-Technica have one of the widest ranges, and they have good sounding headphones and they're very inexpensive up. Now, I don't use them, but he's a professional who I trust, and they're really good. Shure make great headphones. I've got those. I've got 940N, 840s. I personally use my DT 990s, but I also have the ultrasones, which are very popular with DJs. You know, the ultrasones, and I like them because they've got very good high-end detail, so they're great for editing. A little bit like I'm now using the iLouds a lot, you know, and the reason why I use the iLouds is because they have a very good high-end. And so when I'm sitting here, I'm editing a lot and doing like basic mixing, and then when I turn over there, I've got a pair of Genelecs and a pair of Unity Super Rocks. One's with ribbon tweeters, one's got active tweeters. Very different sounding speakers, but really wonderful for mixing on. So I'll work over there, and then I'll turn around and I'll use the mini speakers because I've got a monitor that sits over here. So if I was only blasting from the left, I'd go deaf, wouldn't I? I'd be hearing all the speakers coming from the left, but I don't. I have small monitors here. I also have the little baby Genelecs. So this is what I use. The point is like, you can use anything. The iLouds are like $300. But number one point before we move away, headphones, if that's what you've got and that's all you've got, get making music. Start by making music. It's okay to work on headphones. Is it ideal? It might not be ideal, but you know what? As people are asking me about, if you're working in a little square concrete box, which lots of people are, you know, if you're a home recordist, you're in the spare bedroom, you're in the garage, you're in the shed, you're in the corner of the living room, you know, I know people have had home setups in their kitchen. I did. You know, the point is like, if you're in less than ideal acoustic surroundings, there's another good reason why headphones can work really well. Yes, Ralph says you have no influence of the room with headphones. That is the point. So there's a good reason when you're starting off. We don't want to have a debate here of like, no, you're wrong, headphones aren't good. They're good for starting off. This is about, what is great about this, there is no right or wrong. There's a lot of different opinions. And more important, there's a lot of people making, I don't really care so much about opinions. I care more about like, are you making music, and what equipment do you use and how do you do it? If you're using headphones, if you're using expensive, inexpensive monitors, whatever it is, you can do it. All right, monitors. There are so many things. We've got the iLouds from $300. There's KRK, there's PreSonus, there's Genelecs, there's Focals. There's so many speakers. There's PMCs. There's PMCs, which some of my best friends, like Bob Marlette, mix on, and he is an amazingly talented guy. There's Yamaha, HS7s, HS8s. What do you use? M Audio, Adams AX7s, ATCs, Behringers, You know, there's so many things. Dyne Audio. Everybody's here hitting us with different stuff. The point is like you can use them depending on what you are used to. Eric, headphones are just come down to what's your budget, and I would go and definitely go to a Guitar Center or a big box place and listen to some and see what you like the sound of. Bring music if you can. Bring music that you've recorded and you know the sound of, or find 5 or 6 pieces of music that you know really, really well. Your 5 or 6 favorite pieces of music, and listen to different headphones and different speakers. Get it? And I hope that you get the opportunity to test this, and if you don't like it, send it back. One thing I'll say about VK, Vintage King, is that they will let you send something back if you don't like it. They'll give you, I believe, 30 days to return something. That is very, very cool. I'm not saying other manufacturers don't do that. Other distributors don't do that. But that kind of stuff is really supportive. That's the kind of stuff that we need in our community, because we need to help each other. This is all about supporting each other, not about one-upping each other. Because I have friends that have the inexpensive KRKs that cost like $300, and they make records and people buy them or stream them. So the point is like, it doesn't matter so much. Somebody says Vintage King in Nashville's great. That's up to you. Put reverb first or delay first for different effects. Okay, so here was the big discussion that came on my page this morning. Somebody said, Warren, you're wrong about hi-fi speakers, because NS10s were hi-fi speakers and B&Ws are hi-fi speakers. Well, here's the simple reality. Why do we say don't use cheap, inexpensive hi-fi speakers? The thing with inexpensive hi-fis, like $100 hi-fis, because we're talking about beginners here. We're trying to help beginners, and we're trying to say it's okay to use what you want. The reason why we don't... I used to work for Andertons when I was like 22 years old. And that was a long time ago. The reason why I don't advocate using inexpensive hi-fi speakers is because they have absolutely no peak RMS value. If they're rated at 30 watts, they probably might peak at, if you're lucky, 30, 40, 50, 60 watts. Anybody that knows speakers will tell you that. They're not high quality. They're not designed for huge peaks. And why is that interesting? Why is that important? It's important because when you're tracking, you might have a drum and you put a mic in front of it and like bang, you get that? Bang, it's peaking. It suddenly like goes up, the speaker moves forward, and it never comes back because your little tiny hi-fi, inexpensive hi-fi speaker doesn't have the ability to cope with those huge peak RMS values. Anybody who knows speakers will tell you that. Unfortunately, using B&W and NS10s is not a good reference. Yes, they were hi-fi speakers that gravitated into our world. They have, if I put good, clean power, and we're talking about using Bryston power amps with NS10s. Look up a Bryston power amp. It is not cheap. So my $1,000, which is what it costs now, NS10s, with my several $1,000 power amp is going to put clean RMS value through it, and we'll take it. The same with the B&Ws. My expensive B&Ws, not BMWs, B&Ws, and my expensive power amp driving them will deal with clean power with massive peak RMS. But if you're a kid or an up-and-coming person, you've got $100 Haflers, Hafler with NS10s, Brystons, all of this stuff. These are all great, great things, but we're talking about beginners. Let's not confuse beginners. Let's not confuse beginners, because beginners, we don't want to say it's okay to use a $100 home hi-fi, because that is what 99% of people are thinking. We can't talk about expensive, crossover. Thank you, Eric. I'm so glad to be able to help. We're not talking about expensive crossover NS10s and B&Ws with Brystons and all this kind of stuff. We're talking about home hi-fi. And I blew up my parents' home hi-fi when I was 15 years old because I plugged my guitar directly into it and I started playing some chords, and I remember you used to do that thing where you Yeah, I don't even know if people still have home hi-fis. You have a very good point. I went into play and record so I could play through it, and I had it set up too loud, and I sent this massive spike, and I blew up my parents' hi-fi speakers pretty much within about the first 30 seconds of using it. Because my parents had a home Sony hi-fi, which was like a couple of $100 worth of value in those days. And the peak RMS on those speakers was awful. It was used to listening to programmed, mastered music. That's what inexpensive hi-fi speakers, that's all they need to deal with. So the reason why no professionals, nobody that does this for a living would ever recommend using cheap hi-fi speakers to people is because they know that they're not used to controlling that massive dynamic range that we do when we record. When we record, you get massive dynamics and you have to hear the dynamic and then you have to apply compression on it. So yes, there are exceptions. There are expensive hi-fi speakers that will take those massive peak RMS values, but 99% of them won't unless you're spending a lot of money, or at least a decent amount of money. So if you've got a $100 hi-fi system, it's fine to test your mixes. It is fine to listen to. I've been in rooms with so many major mixers, Chris Ordalgi, Andy Wallace, all of these guys, and they test their final mix on their Bose Wave radio, their 70s, 80s boombox. They all do it. But what are they listening to? They're listening to lots of master bus compression, tons of compression through their SSL consoles, and the dynamic range is like this. But if they put a kick drum through it on play record and plugged it directly in, boom, they just blew up their speakers. It's just logic, because their peak RMS is not, their speaker's going to go forward like this and it may never come back. Or it might come back and it goes, now it's got a little, and I've done it. And I've done it with my home hi-fi, my friends did it, we all did it as kids, we all wrecked our parents' hi-fis because we didn't know anything about that stuff. So, if you're going to buy monitors, buy something that's designed to take that kind of stuff. And the good news is that even the little baby KRKs, Yamaha HS7s and HS8s, the reason why everybody blew their up, everybody's telling me how they blew up their parents' speakers. We all did it. The reason why you pay that $200-300 speaker farts, yeah. You like my little sound effects? The reason why it's that entry point of $200 to $300 minimum, like the iLouds, is so they can do it. Now, if you blow them up easily, tell us. I want to know, because we need to know. This is important. You know, we really need to know. Barking like a dog. Yeah, I mean, you can be careful not to do it, but when you're a kid, did it twice and you blew up your parents' speakers twice. Yeah. Yeah, yes, you did. Everybody's telling you how they blew up their parents' hi-fi speakers. Yeah, because they were inexpensive speakers with no dynamic range and no, peak RMS. It's fine. If you've got a pair of NS10s and a Bryston, or B&Ws with a Bryston, that's fine. You can do it. They may have been hi-fi speakers. The LR series, LR3s from the BBCs were originally hi-fi speakers with massive peak RMS. If you can find those for like less than $1,000, buy them. But what we're talking about here is inexpensive, Your dad's going, why do my speakers sound farty? Yeah, I know. 12-year-old blew up your speakers. We all did it. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that vocal, yeah, that trick. Anyway, you blew up your boombox while listening to my mastered track. Wow. Yeah, I know. What I used to do is plug my guitar through my boombox and put a distortion pedal on it, put it into play and record, and I think it probably lasted a week before they both stopped working. Yeah, it's fine. Like I said, all of my friends, lots of people have boomboxes that they reference their final mixes through, their final compressed, EQ'd mixes through. But none of us track through a boombox or track through hi-fi speakers. It's just common sense. So I know we're all trying to help each other, but let's not confuse the beginners by saying NS10s and B&Ws are hi-fi speakers, so therefore all hi-fi speakers are okay. We know that's not true. So let's help each other. All right, cool. So please, if you're using $200 to $300 KRKs, whatever it is, HS7s, HS8s, let each other know. Let's help each other out. The whole point of this is to be positive and share information. Let's all help each other out. Yeah, underpowered amps. Very good point. Chronix, that's extremely good point. Underpowered amps are really, really not a good idea. Why is that? Because if you distort your amp, even though it might logically seem, oh, I don't want to I'll put a quieter amp on a speaker. No, put a more powerful amp that will never send a square wave through it, because you will blow up speakers with square waves. I have a very good friend, as those of you who follow me know, called Matt Butcher, who's arguably one of the greatest soundmen in the world. He does Blur, Gorillaz, you name it. His sound is insane. And one of his things that he talks about is like he has a lot of clean power. Like he has schnizzle loads of clean power going through his PA, because if he sends a square wave through his horn, it will blow out. And even with thermal cuts and all this kind of stuff, you can blow out, at 10,000 watts of square waves will blow out any PAs. So these are really, really, really important things to know. I don't want to confuse though. We got beginners on here. Let's not confuse. Let's help each other out. Yes, budget monitors. Who's using what? JBL LSRs for $249. What else are you using? And after this video finishes, please do me a favor and come back. I know it sucks, but YouTube does not keep the comments. Come back and let us know what you're using. And if you're watching it from new, let us know what you're using. Your speakers, your headphones, your microphones, your audio interfaces, your DAWs, your computers. If you're using something inexpensive, it does a great job. Help us out. All right. So last but no means least, and it's part of our monitoring thing, is let's talk about acoustic treatment. Now, this is one of the biggest and most contentious conversations. I've seen so many debates and fights and stuff on all the different forums about this. It gets absolutely crazy. Now, those of you that are watching will see that I have bass traps built into my ceiling. Can you see that? All the way along there. There's actually bass traps built in up here. There's also these circular hanging devices that are in there. There's trapping built into this that isn't visible, but it's built into this. I had Genelec come out and measure my speakers using their technology, their SAM technology. What is it? Smart audio monitoring, I think it's called. Anyway, and they rang the room out, and it's pretty flat with a low mid bump, like a low bump. Why does it have a low bump? Because it has, you can't really see it in here, but it has a console. I have an SSL. And it's so typical of consoles. They give you this little low bump. So basically, it's really important to have a good sounding room. I've had a lot of stuff done to this. You can see like lights are sunken in. There's trapping. There's all kinds of stuff. But it's not... no, it's actually soft coated, because all the stuff is underneath. It's soft. It's cloth. Stuff is underneath. I can't turn the camera to landscape mode because it will not follow. Unfortunately, it started like this. If I turn it to landscape mode, you'll be watching the rest of the video like this. Okay. So, no, we've got two sets of lights. That one isn't turned on because it doesn't need to be on, because we have daylight coming through here. Always something. So, but feel free to be helpful. God bless it. So yeah, I love doing the Q&As. It's really, really good. So room treatment is important, but let's get this in order. Find a cheap computer. Whatever you've got can start making music. Most DAWs need a minimum of 4 gigabytes of RAM, a couple of 8. RAM is relatively inexpensive, even for Macs. So taking up from 4 to 8 is not going to break the bank. But it's not free, but it's not that expensive. Number 2, what DAW do you have? If you know it well, we've just gone through the list earlier of every single DAW, and everybody uses a different DAW. And professionals use Ableton, use Reaper, use Mixbus, use Pro Tools, use Logic. They use them all. Chronix is saying desktops are easily upgradable. This is very true. They are easily upgradable. So if you have a desktop PC, it's not as flashy and sexy as carrying a laptop, but it's very upgradable. Really, really good. Eric is learning Pro Tools in class. Reaper. Okay, so next question. So DAW. Doesn't matter. What do you know? You can make music on it. The only reason would be to change would be genre specific. But even then, I know people that record rock on Ableton, so you can do it. I know people that record rock on Reaper, on Cubase, on Logic, you name it, Studio One. So you don't have to be on Pro Tools. However, ask me, I'm going to tell you I like audio editing in Pro Tools. But I am not an expert. I'm just a guy that does this for a living, and that's what I use. FL Studios coming up again. Mick Gordon, arguably the biggest video game composer in the world, works on FL Studio. We rest our case. All right, next up, audio interface. Number one, what's your budget? You don't need an 8-input audio interface unless you're recording a lot of live instruments. 8 is probably the minimum for recording a live band. If you were using 3 mics, the Glyn Johns technique, on a drum kit, you're going to need at least 8 to cover a lead vocal, a bass guitar, a rhythm guitar, a lead guitar, and maybe, background, whatever. The point is like 8 is going to be like the beginning of the ability to record a live band. So that's going to affect your budget. However, if you're using program instruments or you're going to somebody else's studio to record live drums, then you can get away with a 2-input, like an Audient ID4 or a Focusrite 2i2 or an RME, or if you've got more money, the Apollos. Any of those can do it. People ask me why do I use Pro Tools? I used Pro Tools because I started on the mid-90s and it was the best audio editing software in those days. That's why I use it. But you can use whatever you got. Whatever it is, you can make it work. And if you're not recording live drums, then 2 inputs is definitely more than enough. 99.9% of my life, I use 1 or 2 inputs. My piano, I use a mono AEA ribbon mic, lead vocal, 1 mic, bass guitar, DI and amp, and of course, guitar, just a 57. And or DIs. But the point is, 99.9% of the time, 2 inputs. So that's a big answer. And you could go to your friend's studio who has a nice drum room in his garage. Our friend Jeff McDonald and the Academy has an amazing setup behind his house, records drums. You could send him the tracks. He'll play drums on them for you. That's the point. There's guys like that. All my Academy members, not all of them, but a lot of them have started using Jeff to do drums for them. There's other drummers. AJ plays drums. There's people that play drums inside of our Academy that help each other out. The point is that's a community. Create your own community. Be involved in a community. You'll find other musicians that will help you. It's really, really wonderful. Ralph is a drummer, of course, and Ralph is in the Academy. Send him tracks. He'll put drums on your tracks. That's the point. So then what happens is you're down to just using 2 inputs. You could actually get away with 1 input 99% of the time. You really could. It would just come down to do you want to record an instrument in stereo, and do you need a DI? Or are you only recording a DI? Okay, so audio interfaces. Right from the get-go. The level now of an Audient and a Focusrite is insane. That entry level is so good. It's really, really good. It's wonderful. There's 300 of you watching. Please like and share. I see 226 likes. Let's get that up to 300. All right, please like and share. I'd really, really appreciate it. Let's let people on YouTube know that we're online and we're doing a video. Those of you that are on Facebook, if you could do the same, that would be absolutely amazing. Please like and share. I'd really appreciate it. That's the way that they let people know that we're doing this. And this is all about helping each other. Nobody's making any money out of this. This is purely about community. Once the video finishes on YouTube, please list what you've got. I know that's a pain, but if you're still on, please list what you've got, because unfortunately on YouTube, they don't let the streamed comments stay. So please like and share on YouTube. Same thing on Facebook. I'd really appreciate it. Okay, so next up, we're going back. Microphones. So what's the important thing about microphones? Well, we've realized that at about $200 now, you can use so much choice. In that $200 price range, there is so much choice in microphones. And if you watch the Matt LeGlynn video that I did with you, I'm sure Matt McQueen can post it again on both YouTube and on Facebook. If you watch that again, you'll see that there's a lot. Yes, what we ascertained, a Rode NT1 and a Shure SM57 is kind of the beginning. And there's a lot of choice in that price range. You can really do super, super well in that price range. It's absolutely amazing what you can do with the $200 to $300 price range. So, and if you only can afford an SM57, say Audio-Technica, the 2020, $99. Audio-Technica make great mics. I think I've told this story. I'll tell it once more because and I'm not name dropping for the person that's going to say that. I'm telling it because it's an important thing. When we did the second Frey record, we had to rent a bunch of mics because we started in Sausalito at the plant, and then we went to finish the record at the Frey's own studio in Denver. So we're in their studio, and I rented a bunch of stuff. One of the things I rented was a FET 47. And so we rented this FET 47, and of course it's wonderful on bass amps, and it's wonderful on kicks. The problem is I only could get hold of one at that time, and I put it on a kick drum, and it sounded great. I had it on the outside head, and every time Ben hit his kick, you had the oof, the air, and it sounded like a FET 47. We tracked it, but as those of you may know, the Frey don't have a full-time bass player. So a lot of the record was tracked with just piano, drums, and guitars. And most of the second album is live off the floor with overdubs. Unfortunately, one of those overdubs, of course, was, you guessed it, the bass player. So the Dave and Joe both also played bass. That's the two guitar players. So what we would do is we would track live drums, piano, guitars. I had to baffle down the piano, and then I would unplug the FET 47 and then go in the other room and plug it on the bass amp, and that's fine. That's okay, but it started to get a little old. So one day I moved the FET 47 and I go and plug it on the bass amp, and guess what? Dan Rothschild appears. Dan, who actually lives behind me here, is one of the greatest bass players I've ever worked with. And Dan comes down and tracks like half the album with the band. So now what am I going to do? Oops. I've got my bass sound is the FET 47 and my kick sound is the front head is the FET 47. But I'm thinking to myself, I've got 3 inputs on the kick. I can probably get away with another large diaphragm condenser on the kick. So what did I do? I used the $500 Audio-Technica. I don't remember what it's called. I think it's a 4050. Can somebody correct me? It's like a $500 Audio-Technica. Now, bear in mind, I've got a vintage FET 47 that's been on there, which is, I don't know what they're worth, $5,000 to $10,000. They're expensive. So that is living on the bass. And I put the $500 Audio-Technica on that kick head. I got to be honest, it sounded better. It sounded better. Everybody was like, "Oh, the kick sounds really good today." Like something magical had happened. Maybe the air had changed, or maybe Ben had retuned it. No, it was just the mic. The 4050 sounded absolutely fantastic. It sounded better on the kick than the FET 47. Now, does that mean it's a better mic in every situation? No, of course it doesn't. I can see the posts now in all the forums. Warren says 4050 is better than the FET 47. The FET 47 sounded, Chronix, there you go. Yay! Woo! Do that. The FET 47 sounded like a FET 47. It was amazing on the bass amp. It's not about the condition. It sounded great. It was a wonderful sounding thing. The reality is that particular kick drum and that sound responded really well to the Audio-Technica. This was a prime example. We're going to go off into Trollsville here. We'll engage the Trollsville. The reality is it was a great mic. The point is it's like that's where we get lost. That's where people get discouraged, because the point was with this is that an Audio-Technica mic, a $400 or $500 mic, can do an amazing job. Yeah, it's the angry wife, isn't it? It can do an amazing job. It's not a discussion about that. We can do that. You probably want to have your own forum on that kind of stuff. And there are plenty of forums that don't help people but pretend to help people. That's the reality. We can have these discussions, but like the comment about, but an NS10 and a BMW is a hi-fi speaker. Yeah, but it's not a $300 entry level all-in-one thing. This is what we're trying to hear. Yes, the mic placement was the same on both. It was exactly the same place. The point is it doesn't B and a W, sorry. I say it so fast it sounds like BW. The point is these $500 mics can do a wonderful job. They can do an amazing job. It's really, really important. Yeah, Bowers and Wilkins. It's really important that that is the message. It's not this subtext message where we all go off on these tangents and everybody fights about vintage versus new. It's not important to the conversation. What it's important is that we understand that you can make music here, because I get hundreds of emails a day by people that say, oh, well, I was reading about, this $300 piece of equipment or this 100, and this guy told me that it sucked and I needed to spend $10,000. We got to get rid of that kind of stuff, because a lot of this $10,000 equipment was actually $100 new. Case in point, the AKG D19. Those that use it call it AKG's 57. Those that want to fantasize about it say, no, it's so much better. I'm just trying to help people here and make it all about, it's not about like one-upping and being more important and all this kind of stuff and proving a point. The reality is like all these hundreds and hundreds of people here are all commenting on they're making music with inexpensive equipment. And we got it. Creativity comes first. It's not important to go on tangents to prove points and be superior to each other. Let's help each other out. Because the great thing about the Beatles and all this kind of stuff is they started off and they weren't in the world. Remember that meme we posted a couple of months ago with the Beatles, where the Beatles, George Martin, there's a photograph of George Martin goes, you know what, guys, hey Jude, we can't put it out because this guy on the forum said that, you were using the mic in the wrong place. Here's the best one. I when I was recording Brad Whitford, sorry about the name drop, but it's important to tell you it's a big deal. Sorry, but it's important. When I was recording Brad, I used my KM56 on his guitar. And I took a photograph and I put it on my Facebook, and somebody who will remain nameless said, you shouldn't do that. You might blow out the capsule. That's a really stupid thing to do. Does anybody, who are Beatles fans here, what was one of the most common mics they used for recording Vox AC30s, which are a loud, obnoxious amp? You all know the answer. It was a KM56. So unfortunately, Jeff Emerick, Norman Smith, and George Martin didn't know as much as, blah blah on forum, blah blah blah. This is the problem. It's like we gotta break through these barriers and help each other. Sense of community. It's like 421s are great. There's so many great things. So let's be supportive. Let's help each other out. Jeff Emerick always broke the rules. There's a lot of BS out there. There's a lot of people stopping each other. Martin said they didn't have forums. I know, but if only they had, they would have done it the right way. The Beatles, if they had the right forum, they wouldn't have done all these things, would they? They would have done it the right way. My point is like, let's help each other. Let's stay positive. There's so much great information out there. But I think ultimately, if it sounds good, it is good. Emerick was a maverick. I couldn't post the site, VST, I don't know what that is. They won't let you do stuff. Yeah, the rules are made to be broken. It's, stuff that's vintage wasn't necessarily the most expensive. Somebody says, if I had $1,500 to spend on a mic, what would you buy? I already have some stuff. I like the Lewitt LCT 940 because I like the fact it does tube to FET. So it's basically two mics in one. I would probably keep $500 and buy the Slate VMS. Somebody else just said VMS. Do you like that answer? How many people now are going to tell me that it sucks? I'm telling you what, I've used the Slate VMS. If I only had $1,000, that's what I would buy. $100 for guitar sounds because he can play it. Yeah, exactly. Octavia mics are fantastic. Try the Slate VMS. Stephen is doing really, really good stuff. VMS rocks. Yep. People don't like the iLock, but I'm not talking about the iLock. There's a lot of people that shoot down these wonderful things that are just trying to help. And, let's be supportive. Let's help each other. It's really wonderful. I'm going to get offline. I have to get on a call. This has really been wonderful. Please check out the video afterwards. What I ask before we go, can you please like and share? Let's get people talking. What I'd love to do is, like, I'm going to sign off, is for everybody to, luckily Facebook Live keeps the comments, but unfortunately I don't know why, but YouTube hasn't figured out how to keep the streaming comments. So if you could please leave your setups on there. I implore you, please like and share, but most importantly, please leave your setups, because I want everybody to know what we all use. Let's keep this positive. Let's help each other. There's no right way or wrong way. Creativity comes first. Music has been made by teenagers and early 20s people, the best music in the world. Andy Fraser was 15 when Free got signed. The Beatles were between 18 and 23 or 22 years old when they got signed. The point is like, Jeff Emmerich was 19 when he worked on Revolver. It's about creativity. Don't be put off by age. Don't be put off by experience. And most of all, do not be put off by money and by people telling you you're doing it wrong. I don't care. You send me a 4-track cassette, micro cassette, mini disc, iPhone, Android recording. If it's good, it's good. And that is important. And I've known many people to master records off of 4-track cassettes. And it happened for decades. And that is the way it is. And not many people know, but there's a lot of stuff that happened like that. It's just the way it is. It doesn't matter if you're too young. And yes, it doesn't matter if you're too old. If you're 90, do this. Please like and share. There's 267 on you. On YouTube. Please like and share. I'd really appreciate if you hit like at this moment and shared. This is really important. I want people to come together and help each other even more. You are an amazing community. You are so incredible. I love that you are so positive. Let's help each other on. Yeah, 55, rock on. I don't care. 37, 42, 15, 22, 19, 9 and 9 months. It doesn't matter. Make music. Be creative. Help each other. Be supportive. This is fantastic. Thank you all ever so much. Go to producelikeapro.com, sign up for the email list, get a whole bunch of free goods. You get samples, you get free information, and most of all, you get a wonderful sense of community. Everybody is supportive. 44 and 14 in your heart. 62, 55, 25, 27. Everybody here is so supportive. God bless you all. Thank you ever so much. Please share. Please like, and most importantly, once I once I stop waffling on, have a marvelous time recording and mixing, and please leave your information below what you've got. Pre-birth, there you go. Have a marvelous time recording and mixing.